Hello everyone, welcome to another YouTube video. Slightly different scenery here. We are in Sri Lanka. We've met the team from Sri Lanka. We had a great day with them yesterday. Today Adam and I are brainstorming, I think you can call it that, in this quite incredible setting. This is the Tanamira estate on the south of Sri Lanka. Pretty tasty views. But what we want to do is we want to discuss international hiring, working together. I mean, we as a business, we've got offices across different territories. We've been in business for a long time now. So I thought it would be a really good video to just talk through how we've managed to keep our communication going, how we've managed to keep the business staying together, and what the benefits are of having a diversified geographical offering. So this is my business partner, Adam. I'm going to pass over to Adam, and Adam's going to introduce himself and tell you where he lives.
Thanks very much. So if you don't know me, which you might not do, I live in Hong Kong. So I set up the business in Hong Kong in 2016. So I've been out in Asia now for 7-8 years. I became a Hong Kong permanent resident last year, and I've luckily travelled all around Asia, been to some amazing places. We've done some amazing recruitment in the majority of those places, and now I'm in Sri Lanka talking to you guys.
And I'd start off by saying, Adam, you've just touched on the fact that you recruit across many geographical markets across Asia Pacific, and having lived there, it's enormous. Okay, you've got 2 billion people there. There's a lot of countries. How have you managed to, from your Hong Kong base, manage to service clients across the whole region?
In terms of talking about the people that we've hired for us as a business, I mean, we work with English first brands and businesses. So for me, I look for communicators who are, exceptional communicators. And language doesn't really play a part. It's an added benefit if somebody speaks another Asian language. I look for attitude over skill. I think the best hires that we've had have probably been people that don't really have recruitment experience, but they've wanted to advance their career. They've wanted to earn good money. They've wanted to play a part in maybe an area that they have a particular passion in. And those are the guys that have done really, really, really well. And they're still with us today. So for me, it's attitude, teach them the skill, and make sure they've just got that je ne sais quoi, I guess.
Because we have an interesting setup. So we've got the bulk of our staff are in Hong Kong, but we do about 50% of our revenue still in Singapore. So what do you think, from a staff perspective, the people that we've brought on, what do you think's enabled them to work across so many different geographies? And what's the best way to communicate with clients? So give people some insights as to how you can keep in touch with clients. You can show them how relevant you are to their culture and how that you understand the intricacies of their roles.
For me, I think it's about constant communication. I think COVID did us a little bit of a favour on that front, actually, because before COVID, clients were maybe a little bit resistant to the fact that we weren't necessarily in the market that you were then recruiting for. But then with the advancement of tech, people have realised that it doesn't really matter. So I think for me, as long as everybody is keeping incredibly organised communication to those brands, businesses that you then go to work to, clients don't really care that much where you're necessarily based. It then comes down to naturally results. So if you can deliver the results, if you can communicate clearly, concisely, and make it feel that you're part of that location that you're in, be it Manila, Tokyo, Jakarta, that for me has worked wonders. And there are some clients that do still have, I guess, a bit of a resistance to the fact that we're not necessarily there, and that's okay, but then we won't want to force necessarily that relationship. If they want to work with a business on the ground, they're free to do so. But I think we can add just so much more to a recruitment process than having to say that people have to be on the ground.
Many people might be thinking about entering the Asia Pacific market, and it looks like a bit of a minefield. You've got Hong Kong, you've got Singapore, you've got Japan, you've got Bangkok, Jakarta. Where do I go and set up? What do you think are the easier markets to work, and what do you think are the more difficult markets within the Asia Pacific region? It's quite an open question, but I think it'd be good for people to understand where you've had some struggles and where you've had some success.
There is no easy market. I think all the markets have their own kind of idiosyncrasies and issues and problems, but they also have all their own different advantages and pros, I guess, that go with that. So for me, Hong Kong is a good market to be based in because hiring talent is, relatively speaking, easier than other markets. The quality of the talent that you can get there is pretty good. In fact, I think it's actually really good. And if you're working a region, it doesn't really matter then where those people are based. I would then say Hong Kong is quite good. I mean, we probably do about, say, 35 to 40% of our revenue in Hong Kong, and the rest of it comes from the region itself. So Hong Kong acts for us as our hub. I think there's merit to say if we were setting up a business right now, we would probably explore places like Bangkok and Manila and those locations. I think that would make sense. But I think you've got to kind of look where your client base is, who you want to naturally be attracting. If you're going to be basing yourself in Hong Kong but only recruiting in, say, Manila and Jakarta, that's going to be tough because the rates are going to be lower, the salaries are going to be lower, and as a result, you have to still charge Hong Kong rates. So that then might make it not very cost effective for the brand that you're trying to approach. So I think for us, the location still makes sense 7-8 years later, but it's every location has its pros and cons. I think we could have an entire discussion around pros and cons of where you set up a business.
So I've gone through a period of calling you Tokyo Toctan, and that was because I was wooed by the fact that when we did some business in Japan, our rates were around about 30 to 40%, and me being the commercially driven person that I am, thought, wow, what a place this is to go to. And I was been trying to convince Adam to move to Tokyo, but he was having none of it. Interesting, because people will look at Japan and go, that is the, I think, second or third largest recruitment market in the world. I think it's the second. Why have we not set up in Tokyo, and what do people need to be aware of? Because that's probably a market that a lot of people are interested in as well.
Tokyo Toctan, I think that's one of the nicer names you've called me over the years. It's look, it is a great market, and I think that's the other thing. People can look at the very glossy surface of any business or any market and go, wow, 40% rates, high fees, I'm going to do that. It is just not an easy market. I think unless you have a genuine footing into Japan, be it through maybe a long-term retained client that you can leverage on, unless you have staff that speak Japanese, unless you know the culture inside out, it is just very, very, very difficult. So I think it's probably been the reason why, as a independently funded, privately owned company, we've just been slightly resistant of doing it. And I think, Justin and I were both a little bit yin and yang here, whereas Justin's quite, come on, let's do it. Let's set up in Tokyo. And I'm like, maybe not. Maybe we just take our time. I think you've got to go into it open-minded in the fact that you'll be speaking to clients probably for a year before they maybe even give you a proper brief to work on, and that trust has to be gained after multiple meetings, interactions, and the belief that they I think believe that you are invested in Japan. If they think you are just in it for a quick buck, like many businesses might be, it's doomed to failure, and you'll just put so much money into a country that you'll never see a return on. So I think I would approach it with absolute caution.
It's worth noting as well that one of the reasons we went for Hong Kong, and we have a license in Singapore as well, is they're really well regulated markets. There's not much bureaucracy there. They're the tax level's pretty low, and it's a very, if anything happens, you've got the courthouse representation there. It's a really good system. So that's one of the big pluses for us, was that it was it was English. It was really a well run and very easy to set up business environment there. So that's something you can really think on. I know people that have set up in Japan and it's taken them a year, etc. Similar to sort of experiences that we've had in Saudi Arabia. On another note, Adam, how do you think it's been easy, difficult? Obviously, I'm based in Dubai. You're based in Hong Kong. 4-hour time zone difference. How do you think we've managed to get along over this period of time? And where do you think sometimes things can be a little bit hard to manage, or where do you think that things have been challenging?
Good question. I think in a way this might just play to both of our strengths. I'm a night owl, and Justin is a early riser, so it almost seems that we're contactable 24 hours a day between us. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Justin often wakes up to a bunch of barrage of messages from me that might not always be good, and in turn, just as I'm going to bed, I might get a barrage of messages from him that often aren't good. For somehow, we make it work. 4 hours is really nothing. It's not a lot. I mean, sometimes Justin will call me from his journey home after a busy day at work and want to unload a load of information on me, and I'm saying I'm just hopping out of the shower, I'm about to go to bed. But it's okay. I think we make that work. But I think communication in that respect is key. It's the respect of each individual's time as well, and what information is then relayed. And the longer we've worked together, I've realised that there's so many little things that ultimately Justin doesn't need to know about, and I think he's done the same with me as well. But we talk daily multiple times. I mean, it was weird if I don't message you, or if I don't hear from him. I think something's up if that's the case. So I mean, our communication is kind of like joined at the hip, I think, in that respect.
I think another thing to add to that, and look, we're together now in Sri Lanka, right, is that we make a point at least a quarter of meeting up face to face. So I'm at the end of a 2-week trip to Asia Pacific where I've gone and seen all the staff, gone and seen some customers. So, and Adam comes to Dubai quite a bit. So you've got to, Zooms are great, WhatsApps or whatever internal communication you've got, they're good, but just do not rely on them at all. You've got to have face-to-face time. It's for me, it's absolutely critical, and it just makes such a difference, particularly as we've got centralized services like marketing, we've got finance centralized. So it's really important that those people get FaceTime with each of us as well, because I think that is how you get a happy relationship across the business, because they are intricate and very sort of complicated geographies. So that FaceTime just makes a world of difference.
I think to that point as well, I think, again, coming back to COVID, people were under the assumption that, wow, actually you don't need to air travel, you can do everything remote, and we did that because we were forced to have to do it. But then the reality of actually physically getting together and actually having that person's attention 100% has been absolutely key. And yes, it's going to cost a bit more money to put somebody on a flight and put them in a hotel or whatever it might be, but I think you'll get that money back tenfold. You really will. And I think now people have moved away from that virtual meeting requirement and need, because it's not a necessity anymore. You can just see people are less engaged. I mean, back in the day, we saw people would be video on, face to face, really watching you. Now, how many times do you do a video call and someone's just got no camera on, muted? They're not really listening to you. So it's then very, very, very difficult then to expect the same level of results. So I think for me, face to face is absolutely key, and it will continue to be key for years to come. I don't see that changing anytime soon.
And you can't not over communicate your vision and your mission with your staff. That's absolutely key as well. And because you can assume that people understand your vision, that people that are on board with it, you'd be amazed when you repeat how many times people aren't. So never assume. Really, really never assume. But last question I've got for you, Adam, but we'll end on a funny one. What is the worst hire you've ever made at MCG Talent Asia, and for what reason?
I don't think it's been that many, because I like to think I'm pretty good at hiring, seeing as it's my job. And I think you've asked that as a loaded question, because I think you know the one I'm going to probably allude to here. There was a particular person which we'd hired who had a very large crush on me, which is understandable, obviously, but it went beyond that to a point where it was a little bunny boiler at some points, and incredibly awkward. It was the first time I dealt with such an issue, so that probably would have been one of the more awkward hires. That was probably one of my mistakes. That particular individual.
Okay, cool. Well, is there any questions you want to ask me, Adam, or do you want to wrap this here?
I'm happy to wrap it here until the next video. I think it's good.
Bye-bye for now, everyone.